So let's talk rats, OG rats. A proper warlord leading them. The greatest. Yes. We are building Spiteclaws Swarm tonight, ladies and gentlemen. My first ever warband, which I should probably very much repaint good and proper someday. They do deserve a real glow up. An upper mid-sized warband with 5 fighters, where the clan rats, festering Skaven, lurking Skaven and the hungering Skaven can all be resurrected by the leader, Scritch Spiteclaw. It takes an action, but the sweet thing with this resurrection is that it, unlike many other resurrections, can raise these fighters in any starting X. Not only on your side, which is a very good thing, and one of the, if not the, main reasons why they can still be played with some efficacy. They are obviously not S tier, but they can still hold their own. They all sport 5 move uninspired, and they also have one of the most awesome inspire mechanics in the game. Any rat feels particularly special when chosen by a ploy. That means it has to say choose on the actual ploy, not pick or any of that stuff. When that happens, they inspire. The neat thing is that your opponent then also can inspire you via any ploy that chooses an enemy fighter, which then makes it really untempting and a double-edged sword to do so. Pretty sweet, and naturally we will look to capitalize on that and include probably no less than 5 ploys to choose fighters. And they need inspiring, not so much for moves or damage output, but for survivability, since they all except the lurking Skaven start on a single defense. Kirk is the odd one out, since he's the only one with 1 shield for defense while all others sports dodge. And with a very important leader on 1 dodge, 4 wounds, it's crucial to get him on the 2 defense as soon as possible, as to not see our team crumble too early. We will in most cases also want to deploy the leader quite defensively and like a proper brave Skaven warlord lead from the back. With his 2 range 3 damage inspired side, he will come forth towards the end of the rounds maybe to land a crucial charge or so, but otherwise his role will mainly be to make it so that we don't lose too many fighters with racing them and lurk in the shadows to strike when the opportunity presents itself. At least until you've upgraded him to his teeth with sweet loot. Then maybe you could be a bit more brave, but stay clear of charging too early as to not lose your ability to raise your minions. Apart from the minions, we have, as I touched upon briefly, Scritch's totally loyal lieutenant, Kirk the almost trusted. Possibly the best name in the entire Underworlds range. He's also a pretty decent fighter with 2 smash to damage. He would totally be 2 range as well if this was a modern warband, but alas, it is not. The capability of the small ones are initially quite lackluster, but with high move and 2 dodge inspired, they are awesome objective grabbers, and there are some sweet upgrades for at least a couple of them that are in truth quite nasty. So first up, I'm gonna give you some further insight in how I like to go about doing these deck building series. First up, I go to this wonderful site called Underworlds DB, and I pick all of the faction cards that can have a use in this deck. This does not then mean I will include them all in every possible deck, but they will kind of be the starting point or the blueprint, if you will, to add or retract from. This just makes it a lot easier for us to fine-tune things from there. Also, if I talk about these cards up front, I don't really need to go into full detail with them during the course of the video, but you can rather backtrack here to this section if you want to take an in-depth look at them. So I take both surges. One needs Scritch to kill someone and the other one needs us to kill someone or take someone out of action while not adjacent to us. So basically, even if you kill them with range 2, you still won't score it if you have an assisting friendly fighter next to the target, which is problematic with 5 fighters obviously, but the good thing is that you don't need to kill them with an attack action. So it's a bit stronger than it sounds initially. It probably won't go though into most builds here, but it's not a terrible starting point. For the end phases we take lives are cheap, basically lose 2 fighters in a round or the same fighter 2 times will also do with the new wording here. And the other one is brilliant, yes, it needs us to have scored 2 cards in the preceding action phase. So cards scored earlier in the end phase does not qualify, we basically need to have scored 2 searches in the round. Not undoable, but will likely not make it into many of the viable decks here. Everything else here is utter crap sadly, like Infection Annihilation for 3 glory, or a 1 glory third end phase for having no casualties. Sweet Lord Season 1 was really hardcore. So ploys, here it looks a lot more promising, where I initially include no less than 8 ploys. That's a big difference from the objective deck. And this is kind of the theme for the entire first. I mean, the dwarfs have pretty terrible objectives mostly, but their ploys are really awesome. I think Steelhearts have some really good ploys as well, but their objectives are craps. And so we kind of see this a lot. Both core and warbands have pretty decent, don't need to kick that dead horse anymore. Aversion to Death lets us push 2 fighters a step each when a friendly fighter dies. Pushes are always very strong and we will likely die our fair share here. Lives are cheap after all. Next up is Frenzied Stabbing. That's just +1 damage for an upcoming attack. Basically every team in the first season had that one. Always useful, and our damage output needs boosting. We'll likely make it into the more aggressive decks here. Heightened Caution is an extra defense die in the next activation. Basically it doesn't choose a fighter, so that's not great. And it's not terribly important for aggro builds, but might be of use in the more hold builds here. Momentary Boldness is a super fun and thematic card. Basically if we have 3 fighters in a group, friendly fighters in a group, one of them who is adjacent to 2 of the other ones can make an out of sequence charge. And you get to inspire as well because you choose them. You still get the charge token though because you actually make the charge action. So it's an out of sequence attack, so it's basically a free activation, and so and we also get then inspired, so it's really awesome. With 3 resurrectable fighters, it shouldn't be a worry to set it up either. Mask of Fear is another free inspire with a guard token for side order, pretty solid. Nervous Scrabbling is very in tune with Skaven nature. It's confusion from Wish, I guess, since only 1 gets chosen. While confusion is awesome in a championship deck for these guys with inspiring 2 at the same time. Still not bad and can swap your place with an enemy on an objective or what have you. Scratching in the Shadows is push an enemy fighter. No restrictions, awesome. And last but not least, there are always more. It's Resurrection except for Squitch or Kirk, and an Inspire to the out of action fighter. Very nice. Upgrades then. Sneaky Stab is a push before taking an action, not with charges though, sadly, but say Squitch is 3 hexes from an enemy fighter, he can push 1 before attacking, getting him into range with that. Wicked Halberd makes it possible to utilize him without committing or overextending too much, as well as saving his resurrecting capabilities if you don't need to charge, so obviously other fighters can use this as well, but it's especially potent on a ranged fighter obviously. And if you pair this with Skitterscurry, which is restricted to Squitch or Kirk, you can also push after the attack, so that's hilarious Skaven dancing. Next up is Black Hunger, which is nasty. This gives the Hungering Scything and +1 damage, but it targets everyone, friends as well, and you can't have support while doing this. So certainly a dangerous and very Skavenly random upgrade, but much fun has been had with this one for me over the years. Expendable is next, and this one is really good and probably a very important pick to take. Basically, instead of dying from an attack action, you remove the fighter if you are about to be dealt damage. No glory gained for the opponent, plus the opponent gets pinged back for 1. Does not work for getting killed by non-attack actions though, but still really good. Festering Blades is the last one, which is exactly like the Venari Dagger for Myaris. The difference here being that I would never take that one, but I would pretty much always take this one. Why? Because A, Senela is an awesome bow lady and other fighters can do the upfront dirty work, and B, Festering Skaven can be resurrected, thus making the inclusion of fighter restricted upgrades much less of a chance taking and a burden. So yeah, that's our starting point. As you can see, big challenge here in the objective deck. Let's get cracking. As previously, let's take a big old pass on the not so deadly depths and move on to the daring delvers. This seems like a really good match actually. We need lots of bodies forward, and with fighters being rest on enemy turf, that should suit us really well. Lots of mobility to boot as well. For the searches I've kept Squitch is the greatest and then taken everything except the domain one, which is really super easy if you take enough domain cards, but the effects on them are quite bland and I don't want to take 3-4 domain cards just to help me score one search. And one of them actually kind of hurts our fighters as well. And it doesn't really choose us, so yeah, I don't think they're great. I did, however, take the 3 Glory Search. It's a bit of a gamble, but I quite frankly think that if any team can pull it off, these should be a great candidate. It's probably a 3rd round search, though, so I'm not that sold on it, but it just looks too tempting not to include. The rest of the searches here is really nothing much to consider, since we really don't have many options than to take it all. That being said, they should all be fairly scoreable here with a larger warband. For the end phases I've kept Lives of Sheep, but skipped the brilliant yes. You could totally just go the other way around. I've taken everything except Bold Adventurer. Standing in enemy territory with Squitch doesn't really fit our game plan here. All 3 of the 2 Glory end phases here should all be very scoreable with a larger warband, with the ability to race back fighters, and we should see our exploration counter rise pretty quickly here, like the Skaven from the sewers of Altdorf. For the ploys, I'm not super happy with this pairing, as the shoes ploys are very scarce and not inspiring the rats is not something we want to risk. So I felt inclined to include a fair few of the faction ones that do choose fighters. They are, as previously mentioned, quite strong though, so it's not a very bad thing. We need to take the ones that place feature tokens or increase the count though, but I've, as I mentioned earlier, opted against the domain cards because of the weak effects and nothing more than a single search scoring off of them. I ditched the +1 damage card in favor for more shoes ploys and make way for the necessary Delvers cards. Some really tough calls here though. For the upgrades it was a little bit easier, just chuck in all the Explorer cards basically, as well as the Plundered Knowledge for potential exploration count boost. I skipped the Black Hanger as it's best utilized in a kind of a weapon caddy combo or in pairing with more aggressive cards, but I kept the Festering Blades for some offensive punch. I am not 100% sold on this pairing, as I'm unsure on the excellency of the ploys here, and I do wish there were even more flows in the searches. Upgrades and end phases feels pretty solid though. I'd rate this a steady 2.5 out of 5 yeses. Next up is Tooth and Claw, and I'm gonna take a pass on that one. I feel it's more geared towards a solid like 4-man aggro crew with slightly more accurate fighters. It could probably work okay, but one of the strongest searches here is the passive Embraced Savagery. It's actually quite a bit of work to pull this one off with this warband, as opposed to warbands with 3-4 fighters. And taking into account that we will need to take basically all and can certainly use some passive glory, it already there feels a bit too rough a path to tread. And these videos are just long enough anyway, so we don't really need to build every conceivable deck if it doesn't really feel that great from the get-go. Fearsome Fortress next, and this one seems really fitting for the rats. Lots of buddies to swarm the objectives and lots of deploys here to help us use friendly fighters while also having really strong effects. That's a great starting point. The objective deck is really not much to talk about. I've taken the entire Fearsome Fortress deck. So if you really need to check out that one in detail, I have a Fearsome Fortress review way back on the channel, so go ahead and check that one out if you want in-depth analysis of all the cards, but I would touch upon them here. There is really no reason to include any of their own stuff here. The Fearsome Fortress stuff is just more reliable, more passive, and yeah, really solid overall. For the ploys, I've kept stuff that chooses our fighters but also supports the playstyle of Fearsome Fortress. Mask of Fear helps us score earthworks directly and impregnable defenses indirectly. Nervous Scrabbling could see us switch places with an enemy on a feature token, while Scratching in the Shadows pushes that pesky man thing or whatever may occupy it off the objective or into the loving embrace of, say, the Hungering Skaven or whatnot. There are always more, it's just auto-include for all of these decks. Bound Spirit doesn't choose us, but is very reliable ping damage, and even a passive deck shouldn't be completely toothless, I think. Determined, Push, Redeploy, Take Your Position are pushes that also chooses us. We should be getting on those 2 dodges very quickly. Awesome. Tanglebriar helps us get the last feature token out if need be, if it's not already out. We do have a boosted plunder reaction now. It may be a redundant card. If you scrap it, I would add in Aversion to Death or Momentary Boldness, since I was really reluctant to keep them sidelined here. Some tough choices here for the ploys, and I think especially like the Momentary Boldness could also help score us that bold sortie for charging from a feature token in our territory. Because even if we move on to the feature token, we could still get an out of sequence charge off if we are adjacent to other friendly fighters. Yeah. For the upgrades, I've kept some of the offensive punch in Festering Blades and Black Hunger, while Expendable is just beautifully annoying, and Sneaky Stab could provide vital pushes onto tokens. Mason's Great Hammer paired with Black Hunger could be really solid and vicious combo. Walking Wall is amazing, and so is Siege Masters, especially for 2 dodge fighters. This looks really solid for the Skaven, I think. I guess this is a solid 4 out of 5 yeses. Another great pairing is the Beastbound Assault. For A, it fits larger teams pretty well, and B, we have 3 fighters with a minion keyword, which just makes us bypass a lot of the hustle to score this deck and makes us less reliant on the Denizen upgrades. So I've kept the Squitch is the greatest. This is a slightly more aggressive deck, so I reckon we could have Squitch less dormant for some end of the round halberdiering, if that's a word, I don't know. Dogged Determination is dirt easy with this team. Run through a lethal hex and you're good. My general consensus on lethal hexes, by the way, if you are the low wound team out of your opponent and you, go for a board with a lethal hex or 2, especially if the opposing team is one that most likely will go forward. Then it means that you are probably getting one-shotted on most of your fighters, so the lethal hexes doesn't really do you much harm, but they will be a great nuisance for, say, 4 or 3 wound fighters going forward, taking them into one-shot territory basically. Especially if you can put them forward, the lethal hexes that is, so Squitch is more safe from them, but the fighters coming into your turf are not. Loyal allies should be a breeze as well here, with an easy time setting up support. Unbeatable team is too glory for something the Skaven seems pretty well equipped to do. More friendlies on objectives, while more enemies are dead than you. With the ability to swarm the board and raise fighters to mitigate casualties, this should be right up their alley. Unexpected End is kill someone with a minion or a Denizen upgraded fighter basically. We don't even need to upgrade to score that one with 3 of our fighters. We Stand Together is basically put 2 clan rats on an objective. Pretty solid surges here for the Skaven. End Phases then, and Lives Are Cheap is kept in. Die twice in a round with 2 dodge, you might not even pull that off, but that's okay too. But we are a bit more aggressive here, so we should probably see more casualties. Effortless Teamwork means having less out of action and everyone being a minion or having a Denizen upgrade. Basically give Squitch and Kirk a Denizen and you're good. Or sacrifice Kirk and just upgrade Squitch. You could even pull this off with 1 upgrade while having both alive with countless familiars. Super solid 2 glory. Gifted Pathfinders is basically have a clan rat on an objective forward while being within 2 of another one. Or a Denizen upgraded non-clan rat. 1 very easy glory, I think. Inseparable Friends is having a Denizen upgrade on a minion, or 2 on a non-minion. Very easy. Keen Collector isn't out to score, but 3 Denizens on the leader should be doable. Basically countless familiars plus 1 more and you're done. But sure, we need to keep him alive and have a decent draw for that to be that easy. But 2 glory shouldn't be all too easy to score, so I think it's fine. Packmasters is also 2 glory, well suited for us who can race the minions in enemy territory. Could take some investing in the racing if we die a lot, but it should definitely be doable. Ploys then, just like with Fearsome Fortress, we have some really solid choose ploys here to make things really tasty, except the ones I've already talked about and that you can see included here from the faction lot. Launch and Attack is fun ping for the cost of an upgrade. Sure, that hurts, but if we are in a position that we don't really need the Denizens anymore, and we should be in that position more than most teams with the minions we have, or if we can break one of the faction ones, it's ping 1 and possible stagger on the enemy, which is pretty nice actually. Overly Protective is draw 2 when a Denizen upgrader or a minion is attacked. We should get plenty of opportunities to play that one. Unexpected Ally is extra support, and an Inspire helps us score loyal allies as well. Well Trained is a 2 hex push, and an Inspire, amazing. Upgrades. Countless Familiars, amazing, and gets the upgraded fighter 2 Denizens basically, or counts as having 2. And another friendly fighter counting as having 1, apart from any possible upgrades that fighter might have as well. So in practice 3 upgrades for the price of 1 That's a crucial upgrade. Deadly Swarm, a decent attack upgrade for any of the minions, with another upgrade and maybe a familiar counter that's 2 smash 3 damage. Pair that with Festering Blades or Black Hunger and it gets scary pretty quickly. Situational, sure, but still a fun combo there. Ever Hungry Fiend is extra support, not amazing, but helps loyal allies, and our accuracy isn't amazing, so it helps. Stalking Terror is more support, but mostly denizen keyword like most of these. Unsettling Follower even more so, but the effect could still situationally be really annoying, especially with the surprise element with this fighter being raised late in the round on a starting next to an enemy sitting on an objective token deep in enemy territory, for example. Vicious Familiar often does nothing, but especially versus 2 defense dive fighters, it could actually have some mileage. Also, of course, the denizen keyword. I think this looks a solid 4 out of 5 yeses as well. Seismic Shock will be passed, and so will Void Cursed Thralls, giving up the 2 dodge defense, and if we Void Curse Squitch, which we need to do to score the really juicy end phases, giving up that raise ability is just too big of a cost, and we have a fair few options to build the rats anyways. We don't really need to shoehorn in the Void Cursed Thralls, even though I think it's a very solid deck for a lot of warbands. Paths of Prophecy should fit them very nicely though. Let's try. There's really no need to take any of the in-faction objectives here. They are all frankly pretty weak, and when we aren't even playing aggressive, the kill searches can go too. So if you want to check out those cards, go ahead and check my review of the Paths of Prophecy. I'll talk about the synergy while we go along. Ploys. Heightened Caution will keep us on the objectives, so will Mask of Fear, and Nervous Scrabbling might get us there. Scratching the Shadows will make way for us to get on them. A Pact Sealed in Blood isn't a huge risk for us, as we are one-shotted mostly anyway, and Holding 3 should be doable for an amazing card draw option there. Fair Fortune is an Inspire plus potential card draw if Holding 3. Inspire and free upgrades are sweet enough, card draw is just potential icing on the cake. Slinking in there are an amazing push and an Inspire. Succor Uncertainty is heal plus Inspire, and Tread the Path is a push disguised as a move, or vice versa, plus an Inspire. This looks great for the rats. Upgrades. Not a lot of point to take really aggressive stuff here, but expendable can stay, and I actually kept Skitterscurry as well. Basically Squitch can push on to an objective after doing his racing. The rest of it is just manipulate numbers, buffing defense on feature tokens or dice, push, resists, etc. to score as the deck. This looks really sweet. I would give this an easy 4 out of 5 yeses. Breakneck Slaughter is an awesome deck, but with a team such as this that needs a really heavy side order of scoreable objectives, I just don't think the heavy end phases here fits these guys well enough to render it a good choice. For example, an objective like Fast Surround for 3 UC Glory, Conquest Denial combo for any end phase for 3 glory. That's a pretty sweet objective for smaller teams, but with 5 fighters and Squitch ideally staying back to raise fighters, it's not a good fit, at least not while playing to this warband's strengths at the same time, and I think we should be doing that. Eager for the Fight is also amazing for smaller warbands, but will be a stretch for these guys even though it's generally very easy to do. Sadly, a pass. I'm gonna pass Force of Frost 2, it's just a way better fit for spellcasting teams, even though it's not an absolute requirement. We do have better options though. Let's try Malevolent Masks. Let's just take all of the objectives. They are all pretty well suited for the rats. Audacious Aspect to hold 1, 3 or 5 with a masked fighter, or holding 2 objectives. Both need to be in non-friendly territory though if you take that second option. That's pretty easy. Death's Visage, kill someone while wearing a mask or make 3 successful attacks in a round. We have the potential of a lot of out of sequence attack here, which you will see shortly. So this should be especially doable with the second option. Dominance, search for having an inspired fighter with a faceplate. Easy to inspire, great objective. Feast of Violence, make 3 range 1 or 2 attacks in round. Out of sequence attacks don't count towards this though, which is a bummer, but still we have 5 fighters and all have range 1 or 2, so this should be fine as well. Slaughter satisfied. It's a bit of a later search for these, for there being more dead enemies than living dittos, but we've built pretty aggressively in the ploys especially, so this should be doable as well. Visions of Success is very similar to Audacious Aspect for holding 2 or 4, with a mask or holding 3 objectives and at least one needing to be in non-friendly territory. Still very doable for the Reds. They don't feel as easy as some other searches we've seen in this video maybe, but I still think they are solid. For the end phases I would argue the glory is maybe a tad bit low in total, but there is some potential for a little bit of extra glory from a couple of the cards. Completed Pact is 3 glory for having more survivors with masks than there are enemy fighters left on the board. This is obviously a tall order, 3 glory end phases should be, but with our fighters raceable, this fits them well, even if it's probably a second, if not third end phase card, basically in practice. Hooded Stranger needs at least 1 masked fighter to be in enemy territory. Extra glory if no enemies are adjacent to one of the friendlies that fulfill this condition. Super easy, and the extra glory is welcome indeed. Solid Spread would probably have been scrapped were it not for the lackluster faction end phases, but having a fighter in each territory should be doable with mobility and raceability. Stoic Appearance is hold an objective while wearing mask, dirt easy. Totally Overpowered is 2 glory for holding 2, very easy, and though half of the warband being out of action and or having at least 1 wound, I think the last part there makes it quite scoreable if we're not meeting like another race team or Sarbaks or something. It's still scoreable then, but a bit more of a reach, but versus smaller teams especially it's very good. Victorious Veils is 1 glory for 3 survivors having a mask, 2 extra glory though if we score it in the third end phase, and it's preferable if we do, given our masked guys to a great extent can come back. So there's 15 total glory, but with a chance for 18. I'll take it. Ploys then. As I said, we're gonna go a bit more aggressive here. Aversion to Death is gonna see a lot of windows here probably. We will be fairly aggressive, so we'll do our fair share of dying, so pushing our fighters into position ahead of our activation to have eligible attacks without charging is real nice and helps a couple of those searches. Frenzied Stabbing is, yeah, plus 1 damage. Not normally a card I'll take, but I think we could use the oomph here. Momentary Boldness is an Inspire and the first of our out of sequence attacks here. Scratching in the Shadows, and there are always more, or just auto includes. Never don't take Infection Distraction. Hooded Rush is push 1 or 2 if you have a mask and an Inspire. Maskborn is amazing. Lift back a dead fighter with a mask and make him do an out of sequence action. That's potentially 2 out of sequence attacks so far, but you could do a regular action as well. This could even be great for Squitch to perform a last crucial race or something like that. That's just extra awesome for this warband given that fact. Scrabble in the Dirt is an important card here I believe. Both Maskborn and Taking Over are extremely strong ploys. To be able to make them twice is awesome. Taking Over is another out of sequence action and potentially even out of sequence attack with Vitrix's Eye. Unveiled Ambitions is also a rather crucial card here. We get to search our deck for a mask upgrade and put it in our hand. We can cherry pick here. Having the synergy between the ploys and having the upgrades equipped is very important for this deck to work. Otherwise it can be really a slow starter, as we saw in our game with Hexbanes, where Matthias really got no deck synergy up front and got his deck starting just way too late. Upgrades then. Aggressive, as I said, we take the Black Hanger, the Festering Blades, and we also take the auto-include Expendable, of course. Sneaky Stab as well for a bit of extra push, and we frankly don't need more than 6 masks, especially since several of them don't allow for a second mask. But we still need to make sure we have enough to draw them with any regularity. We want the deck to flow from the get-go, and we should always have a little bit more than we actually need. I think that's a good rule of thumb for any deck. But the caveat for me here with this deck is we've done what we can to minimize the randomness, but you could still find yourself in the position Matthias was in that game, where you have a situation where you are at the mercy of the card draw. More so than with other decks here, I would argue. I'll let the decks included here roll for a while, a second time here, so you can check them out. As always, thanks for watching. If you have any requests for future installments, please comment below. I've had a couple ones so far. Members' requests will though be pushed ahead of the queue, but I'll definitely take everyone's thoughts into account, as long as I find the video rewarding to make. Lastly, I would just encourage you to click that like button. I heard Vince Venturella say this the other day. It's free and it helps, and that's really all there is to it. These videos are scripted and takes quite a few hours to put together, cut and add the graphics over, so I do really enjoy making them, but if you could help me with the outreach, it goes a long way to keep me motivated. Cheers! This is Mats again, chiming in to thank you for watching the video. Please don't forget to subscribe, like and comment, and to not miss out on future content, ring the bell as well. And if you really liked this video, feel free to click the thanks button just below this video. And if you want to support me even further, you can now become a channel member and claim the title of Critical Focus Fan. Until next time, take care, bye.